starting with a Torch Talk interview with Big Sexy Kevin Nash, in which Big Kev pulled absolutely no punches about his current run in TNA. My favorite quote, in which he talks about, it's like, he's asked, are you committed to TNA? And he says, no, because to me, I'm 0-5. 4 of those were with Dusty booking. I think in that time, his son is 5-0. It gets to the point where, I'm not a mark, but I can't work for a company that books matches and doesn't book finishes. If you saw the booking of Triton versus Monty Brown, his booking is still cutting edge. Laughs. Motherfucker, I saw that shit that night and I went, you know what? I don't care what Daniels and AJ do after it. It's not going to pull this pay-per-view out. That is a fucking back and to the left Kennedy headshot where it's the emergency room and we're just going to make you comfortable until you die, because it didn't matter what happened after that, let alone our fucked up finish and everything else that happened.
I love you, Kev.
This is a man who's still working for this company.
This is a man who does not give a single solitary shit.
He is just going off. He is popping off, throwing shots at Dusty. We'll talk a lot about Dusty on this episode. But there's a lot more in the show notes. And honestly, you should go read the full Torch Talk, because it's absolutely tremendous. Like, the first question he's asked, like, why he starts working for TNA, and does he feel like he's getting something out of it? And, like, he basically says that he's working for TNA because Jeff Jarrett's a good friend of his. And when he was finishing up with WCW, Jarrett was like, hey, come over to TNA. And Nash was like, sorry, I gotta go to WWE. And he felt kind of bad about that. So it's like, yeah, I'll do the TNA appearances. And then he goes on like a long non sequitur about how his first car trip had Sid, Dutch Mantel, and Iron Sheik in it. And then talks about how Iron Sheik called him a jabroni and he was smoking a joint and asking what Nash wants out of his career. And Nash, tremendous interview. He seems like the kind of guy who you could just sit there, literally ask the smallest of prompts, and he will just go off.
He's a natural speaker.
He is. What a man.
Yeah. I'm looking at some of the highlights as in this interview, and one of my favorites was like, has AJ Styles impressed you? Yeah. Thanks, Kev.
Yeah, and like, in fairness, like that's kind of a leading question from Wade Keller, because he's like, oh, he's not a vanilla midget like you used to say about Malenko, Benoit,
gotcha journalism.
And whereas Nash is like, no, the vanilla midget comment, that was at a different point in my life. I've got a much greater appreciation for those guys today. The thing that killed me was watching Daniels and AJ work before me and Jeff. I mean, you talk about your ass tightening up. I'm watching that going, fucking hell, this is good. This is really good. I'm watching, and I'm not even thinking about a spot I've got to do or anything, because he's in the main event, by the way, right after, against Jarrett.
He had a better match, so don't worry, Kev.
I asked how long they were going after the time limit. They said 3 minutes. I said, well, I guess I should get up and stretch. I'm 45 years old. I gotta quit being a fucking mark and watching their match. I didn't remember anything we were doing. I figured, though, it'll come to me. We got out there. I don't know if you can see it on tape or not, because I haven't watched it back, but I looked at Jeff in the ring and said, I'm blank, call it.
Well, to be fair, not a bad guy to be in there to call it with.
Double J.
Yeah, Double J. That's a man who can call a match on the fly.
Yeah, he even like starts talking about how everyone said his match with Jarrett was good. And then he's like, you fucking marks, I worked you.
Oh no!
It's like, it was all smoke and mirrors. Jeff created all the movement. We used the run-ins and everything we could possibly throw in. I had asked Jeff if I could have a couple of his matches on DVD they'd done lately against Monty and a couple of other guys. And then Jarrett sent him the Bad Blood match against Shawn Michaels he did. We sat down and went, what do you see? I looked at him and said, what the fuck? I've got a legal pad right here. I've written down every fucking prop we could use, and I had them on one side of the page, and on the other were all the human bodies we could use. He goes, well, what have you got? And we just took all those pieces, plugged them into a match, and that's what we did. It was the same thing with Billy. I can get 45 minutes out of a screwdriver. I don't think anyone's ever done that before.
Well, you know what, Kev? That's what working a match is. I don't get what your point is, like, the people thought it was good. I'm gonna, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what all matches are, is making the perceiving is trying to trick the audience into thinking that it's a good fight.
Tricking them into thinking you're trying when in fact you're just throwing every gimmick at the table and hoping it works.
That's also wrestling, man.
It's the best kind for you.
Yeah, apparently so.
So he then starts talking about whether or not TNA is hip.
Yes, is it hip to it?
And Nash says, I mean, my whole thing has always been, alright, I'll talk to guys. I was watching BET the other day.
Of course.
Who watches BET? Well, I do, because they got raw underground rap guys who come on there. You can get some really incredible ideas. There's a magazine called Herb. It's an urban magazine. Nobody reads that magazine. I get a subscription to it. I read it. There are so many things in so many magazines. When was the last time these guys watched real life or paid attention to pop culture? I don't watch that shit, they say. You know why? Once again, it's because you're in the wrestling bubble. You don't understand. Right now, they're doing the thing with Batista. Batista's starting to pose like famous bodybuilder Frank Zane. I told Vince when I was there a long time ago, you've got to realize that in this culture that we're in, the two biggest babyfaces are a crooked cop on the Shield and Tony Soprano. Those are babyfaces in our society. Anything that isn't near that, fuck it. That's it. Those are your babyfaces. And the heel is Glenn Close. She comes in to control the fucking corrupt cop, and she's a fucking heel. There's your society. That's what we've got to book with.
He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. Now, you could say two things about that. One, his run with the book in WCW was terrible.
Yes.
So, he's also not really in touch. And two, you could read it as him angling for the book here, specifically attacking Dusty. Which, you know what, there's probably worse things they could do.
I feel like a more detached from the ring Kevin Nash 2005 booking is probably stronger than WCW booking.
Where he tended to book himself stronger than he perhaps should have.
Yeah, like, I feel like there's a degree of separation which would come from this a little more.
I do appreciate the utmost honesty.
Yeah.
And, like, he's Kevin Nash. What are they going to do? You know?
Yeah.
He's Kevin Nash. They'll probably use him again. They do use him again. Because this is the end of his run for now. Obviously, we'll talk about how he is pulled out of a lockdown match because he has a staph infection. And then he's filming movies for a while, so he's not available. So he's kind of done for a while, and he's just like, fuck it. And like, he's not alone. There is pressure mounting on Dusty that we'll talk about in a minute. But this Big Kev interview is absolutely sensational. I should listen to his podcast. Do you listen to his podcast?
I listened to like a clip, but I don't remember. I mean, it's Kevin Nash talking to the dude that he used to do kayfabe commentaries with. So I imagine it's good. Those two always had a good chemistry together. God, I'm really struggling here. I'm gonna try my best.
You were fine.
Old K-Nash is going through it right now, though, isn't he?
Yeah, he's had a tough time himself.
Yeah. Between
his best friend and his son. Yeah, Big Kev. And yeah, he is famous for shoot interviews, isn't he?
Oh, as a kid, one of my go-tos. If I saw that Kevin Nash was doing a shoot, I'm putting it on.
Due to his sharp wit and his utmost honesty.
It was a refreshing wave in a shoot interview culture at the time.
And it's a kind of bummer because, like, on TNA he was just being silly and goofy, and he kind of hasn't been that for a couple months, and he's just kind of been a serious guy who stands around and brawls and doesn't even really cut promos. I can't remember the last time he had a microphone on one of these shows. So it's kind of a bummer that even on the show itself he's kind of not doing much.
Yeah, well, he's in the Jarrett-verse.
That's true. You get sucked in there and you become a bland, horrible wrestler who nobody could possibly care about.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow designed to serve just the NWA champion. Oh, Double J.